So welcome to the Makers Conversation. My name is Ollie Forsyth. I'm the host of the Makers podcast. So I go around interviewing the most high-profile entrepreneurs to find out how they build really cool companies, but also how they screwed up, because it's not talked about enough. And I think those are the golden nuggets of information that we all need to know about. Just before I introduce the two speakers, you've got two postcards on your chairs, which hopefully you've seen. We've got Visa here tonight, who are a date agency, almost the opposite to Tinder. So if you sign up for their paid membership, I'm told they have an 85% success rate, and you have a free open membership here tonight. Also, a massive thank you to WeWork, who are hosting us. Karen in the back there is done work for us, so thank you, Karen. But my two guests here this evening are, we've got Graham Hobson, co-founder of Photobox, which has raised over $300 million to date. They also bought Moonpig, and they sold for many hundreds of millions of pounds, which we'll go on to later on. And we've got Simpson, the co-founder of the concierge service, Quintessentially. So thank you both very much for coming this evening. So Aaron, let's start with you.
Hello.
How are you doing, first of all?
I'm very well, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
So I always ask my guests in the morning, what do you have for breakfast, first thing?
Oh, God. Granola.
Is that all?
Yeah.
And what is
about 6 coffees, but that's...
And 6 coffees.
Don't mention that.
Fair enough. And what is the one thing you wish you did differently before you turned 20?
Oh, God.
It wasn't that long ago, by the way.
Dated Kate Beckinsale.
Not bad.
I was at college with us, but I couldn't
Fair
get
enough.
there.
Fair enough.
I tried hard.
And what is...
Still trying. Don't tell my wife.
Fair enough, fair enough. And what is your favorite company right now, apart from Quintessentially?
Oh, the one I'm working on, which I can't talk about. No, my favorite company. WeWork, of course. Oh, no, not WeWork. Let me think about it. I'll come back to it.
Okay, I'll say the hands. So you started Quintessentially in 2000, when I was actually just 2 years old, with...
Don't look it.
Thank you. With Ben and Paul.
Yeah.
What was the eureka moment, and why Quintessentially?
Well, I was a film producer at the time, and I was producing movies, good ones, not very good ones. And I bumped into Paul, I was at university with, and I said, I've got this idea for basically a online shopping mall, a digitalized shopping mall. And he said, that won't fly. Boo.com had just gone. Do you know Boo.com? Some of you do, some are like, yeah. Boo.com was the biggest internet failure of its time. I think it was about 70 million. It was invested by LVMH into it. And so we decided perhaps park that idea and instead give people access to the inaccessible. We did so across London and New York initially, and the idea was basically to compete against Black Amex. That was it. The eureka moment was, Black Amex don't do that very well, so we will do it very well. And now we're in basically 1,800 countries, about 5,000 people, and look after about 250,000 clients.
And so how many members do you have now?
250,000.
Fair enough, okay. And going back to those early beginnings, what were some of those really hard challenges?
Right at the start, how do you sell a concept that no one really gets in terms of access? London is a very complicated city, and even in those days it wasn't as digitalized as it is now. So it was very much about relationships and growing relationships. So we had teams out there every night going clubbing and eating in fine restaurants and getting to know the owners, etc. And the business was very organic. I mean, you couldn't just email 1 million people or put posts on Instagram. None of that stuff existed. So it was very much a word of mouth play. We signed up around 300 people in our first couple of months, and that helped us grow. And then a company called Virtu, I don't know if you know about them, but it's a mobile phone where you could press a button and you could connect to us, and we built that concierge platform for them. And that was owned by a lovely company called Nokia, again, doesn't really exist very much today, who put about £5 million our way. Bingo!
Love it.
All right.
So it's been reported you do about $100 million in annual revenue.
That's net revenue.
Net revenue, okay. How are things going in these challenging economic times?
Well, I don't think they are challenging. I think Britain is up for sale at the moment. We're 20% off Price-wise, we did 3 transactions. It's not just a concierge business anymore. We have real estate, education, a marketing company. Tons of different companies, 28 businesses now. And we did 3 of the largest real estate transactions, all north of 60 million this year in London. And we're pretty immune to recession. In recession, our clients tend to galvanize their funds and buy things. So even in tough times, dealing with rich people is very easy.
You talk about rich people, it's all the people's business. But how do you work with difficult people, I guess?
Difficult people, like you, Ollie. Well, we obviously have lots of difficult people, but we tend to not keep them. We get rid of them. Remember, we're a private club, so we have membership. Our membership fees are between £10,000 and £20,000 a year, and we can decide if that person stays or goes. We're at that capacity now. We only take 5,000 people in each city around the world. And so it's a pretty interesting discussion when you talk to, say, a head of a bank who's screaming and shouting at someone who's trying to help them, tell them to go away quietly. So yeah, that's what we do.
I remember when we met in January, you talked a lot about building networks. You're very well connected. What are your tips to founders of building a great network, and how have you built your network?
But you have to be a good person, I think, for starters. I mean, you can't just go out and network. I don't believe in that. I believe that people come to you. There's a great saying that a lot of people who are very famous or royalty, etc., always like the people at the back of the room, not the people at the front. So if you're very pushy and forward, I don't think that. I think you have to engage with people on a human level, do a little bit of research, but don't overkill it. You don't find out what their pet hamster's called and stuff like that. But for me, it's a natural process. And put yourself in the environment that you need to achieve what you want to achieve, but without, also do other things, not just that, all right? Not just your sole target, because people smell it and it doesn't work, I don't think. But you're in the best city on earth. Trust me, I've lived in Hong Kong, I've lived in LA, I've been very fortunate, lived in New York. This is the best city on earth, by far, by far. So abuse it in a beautiful way.
Why is London?
Oh, come on. London and the whole ethos of London business, shake the guy's hand, it's done. People aren't in your face, they're respectful, there's still an integrity in business, it's central financial district on earth. New York may argue with that, but ultimately, the only thing we're probably not as good at in certain cities, like for instance LA, networking is off the charts. If you link with someone in LA, they will connect you to their entire network because that's their value. New York will ask you straight away how much you're worth, where do you live, what's going on. If that's your goose, then go after it. But London is very much a city of, every headquarter on earth, either a European headquarter or global headquarter, is based here. So use it. It's the best opportunity. The most fortunate thing is you're born and work here. So that's why we have so many very successful companies coming out of London. It's easy, relatively. Yeah. If you were born in, Paris, you've got to get on the Eurostar quite a lot to London,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And so how many direct employees do you have now?
5,000.
5,000. And how do you make sure they're all cooking on gas every day, making sure they've got a drive to keep on going?
You can't. You have to trust that they're doing their job. Unfortunately, when you get to a certain scale, it becomes... We're not a corporate because we're quite entrepreneurial, so you could come as an employee to me and say, I've got a great idea, and we'll try it. We'll try it out. But it is very difficult at that size to keep everybody cooking on gas. But you know the good ones, and you promote the good ones.
I remember back again when we met in January, back in the early days, you had a payroll of about 50 grand, you had 8 grand in the bank. Just go back to some of those.
2001.
2001.
Yeah.
Let's go back to some of those really early challenges.
Yeah.
How did you get through those difficult times and pick yourself up next day and keep going?
Yeah, so we were employing about 150 people at that point. Maybe. And we had a shortfall of around 50,000 on the payroll, and we were expecting a big chunk of change to come in from a corporate, and you could either factor it which costs a lot of money, or you ring a shareholder and go, do you mind bridging this? Which he did, and it cost me a lot of equity.
And that was it.
That was the deal.
And what are some of the other challenges you face?
Growth is a tough one. It's a good one, but it's a tough one. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but growth is a challenge. Getting the right talent is a challenge, right? How do you know who the person is sitting opposite you? They can sell sand to the Arabs, but they don't know where the camels are. You know what I mean? It's like, it's difficult to know if that person is a good person. You've just got a gut feeling, and I think a lot of my business, unfortunately I've got quite a big gut, so it sort of works for me, is that it's a gut feel, and listen to that gut feel. I think if you connect with that person, and a lot of people suppress their gut feelings, they try and analyze things, they try and achieve things through, ignoring that. I think if you get that gut feeling and you really work with it, it'll prove you good in the end, if you're an entrepreneur. If not, don't do it.
You mentioned again, it's a people's business, and I'm sure you've had some Fruity Loopy requests in the past 18 years. What is the one weirdest request you've had, apart from
well, we have the Queen ring up and say, can you get rid of this guy? What? Sorry?
Paris Hilton's pink jet?
Paris Hilton's pink tour.
Tour, yes.
Yeah, so she had a pink private jet and went on a pink tour around the world. So we had to get this jet, paint it, take the interior out, all pink. But it was for a big launch, I think Victoria's Secrets or something, around the world she flew. So yeah, that was one of them. But we do daft things and great things. We've got a big foundation. We raise about 15 million a year for charities around the world. Actually, your wife has worked with my business partner on Felix Project, which is delivering meals to school children in the morning. 70,000 kids in London. This is what I'm not proud of for London. 70,000 kids a day go to school without a breakfast inside them. So we're raising money to put that right. But we do the, sublime to the ridiculous. So, we've delivered burgers on top of mountains for people that wanted to make sure, rang up and gave us a challenge. We've got submarines circling some of the biggest super yachts in the world to check no one's going to nuke them. I mean, daft things. I'm going to write a book at the end.
How do you deliver a burger on top of a mountain?
Fast. No, we got it. It was in the Moroccan hills in the Atlas Mountains, and we had to get a burger, this particular burger, to him on the top of the hill. So.
I think I read, was it £25,000?
It was 25 grand. The helicopter.
Must have been a good burger.
It was a great burger.
But looking inside the company, you had a new CEO last year, Anastasia. Why was it the right time to
replace
the CEO?
I'm too old for this lark. No, I have a startup I'm doing. So I said to Anastasia, who's been in the company, she's been in the company 10 years. She's 32. She's a female millennial and knows the market much better than we do. She's digitalizing the whole product and service across all our strands and our threads. And she's brilliant. She's done a fabulous job. Really fabulous job. Don't tell her that. She's up for a pay review at the moment. But she's done an okay job. It's pretty mediocre, to be honest with you.
Good.
No, she's great. She is great.
And what do you think was the greatest skill you learned as a CEO in those 18 years?
The best thing is, obviously, and again, I'm teaching you all to suck eggs. The most obvious thing is get yourself great people around you, because if they're good, you're excellent, right? Because they make you look good. Reflective glory. And as I say, follow your gut instinct to find those people. And I say this in a really positive way. All our top execs, 70% of them are women. And I feel that women in top jobs are better. That's controversial, isn't it?
Great.
But in terms of the route they take, it's probably different nowadays, but the route they take or took was tougher and harder. And I think we have 70% of our ladies are top execs, and I think that's a really important lesson for me, to employ as many great people, but also women.
And so looking to the next 5 years, what's next for Quintessentially?
Quintessentially, yeah, okay.
You can talk about your idea.
We're building a big boat. We're building a 220 metre boat, which is a first ever floating private club. You're all welcome.
Is that serious?
Yes, yeah,
Great, that's on camera.
You can all come. You might not get on, but you can all come. Get it. I'm kidding. And what else are we doing? We're actually in talks to do a hotel chain at the moment. But yeah, they're the two big projects. Yeah.
Very good. Well, Graham, if we come on to you, thank you very much for being here this evening.
You're welcome.
How are you doing?
I'm really good, yeah.
Good. So let's ask the same question. What do you have for breakfast this morning?
Oh, I get the same question.
You get the same question.
I should have rehearsed. I had muesli.
Very nice.
I actually went for a swim and then I went home and I had muesli. So.
And what is your favourite company right now, apart from the various companies you're involved with?
Favourite company? In terms of what?
Anything.
Anything.
One company you love.
Well, I spent 2.5 hours being an Apple fanboy last night watching the keynote, and I thought they did an amazing job of creating drama and theatricality around, incremental changes, but they did a really good job of that. A friend of mine is a producer for a movie company. They make really cool documentaries about space and flight, and they've got a movie coming out called Armstrong, like the true story of Neil Armstrong. And I just love the work they do. It's really interesting. They have a great team, and they produce amazing stuff. So that's one of them. Yeah.
Love it. And what's the one thing you wish you did differently before you turned 20?
Got a tattoo.
Really?
Yeah. I think I should have been more rebellious. I grew up as an only child, and I feel like I was a complete idiot until I was 25, and I didn't get enough life experiences before I was 20.
Love it. So, like Aaron, you started Photobox in 2000.
Yep.
What is Photobox, and what was the eureka moment for you guys to launch it?
So I had a career in investment banking tech for about 14 years before Photobox, and I got married and I had 2 young children in 1999, and we were taking lots of pictures of them and I was taking a roll of film down to Boots every couple of weeks, getting the pictures printed, and like half of them were rubbish, blurred, flash didn't go off, tear them up. And I thought there has to be a better way, so I bought a digital camera and I couldn't get prints. It was just that simple. You can't get prints on the high street. There was barely an internet then, and you certainly couldn't order them online. So I thought, it can't be that difficult. You can see these print machines in the back of every chemist. Having a website and an order management system can't be that difficult. So it was just an idea, a business plan I wrote with Tube over 2 weeks, and kind of did a little proof of concept, and it worked. And so by the end of 99, I decided I was going to do it. And then I had to convince a friend to come in with me, or I wouldn't have done it. So.
And I believe on your first day you made £2.70?
We did, yeah. We launched in May 2000, which was a bit brave because there was only dial-up at the time. We were trying to launch a digital photo service with no broadband. But yeah, we opened and a guy printed some pictures of some air show, and £2.70 was the first day.
Great.
Next 2 days were 0.
So I guess some of those early challenges, what were they, and how did you get through them?
So I think when you do a startup, there's no guarantee that it's going to work, obviously. And in retrospect, you can think, well, that was okay. I kind of muddled my way through. But every day feels like an existential crisis. There was so much to do. I was sleeping about 4 hours a night. Everything felt like we were doing it half-heartedly or wrong. And we went very quickly and with a very terrible website, but launched it. But ironically, I think the thing I did most wrong in the first 2 years was just going too slowly. I had a friend called Mark who came in with me, and we were both quite conservative and really, really caring about cash flow preservation. And once we'd proven that the idea worked, I think we should have gone out and raised more money and gone faster, and we didn't. We tried to grow very slowly, and that was a big mistake. And around the time that Boo went bust and Last Minute launched, the whole market crashed, and it wasn't possible to raise money. So we did have to kind of go into hibernation mode. But when we came out of that, we should have come out a lot faster, and we didn't.
Well, you raised 500,000, I think, the first month.
I raised 480 grand from people I worked with, because it was an internet boom. So they were like, yeah, here, have 15 grand, have 30 grand. So I had a NatWest bank account at the end of 99 with 480 grand in it and a kind of 20-page business plan. And I thought, I'm a fraud. I like somebody's going to come and arrest me. But yeah, we had the money, we had the thin business plan, and I hired 2 guys called Chris, one to build the website, one to build the printing system, and off we went.
And it took you another 5 years, I think, to raise your next round?
Yeah, I think by 2005, and this is where I really took way too long, I'd burned through all my savings, I'd sold my car, I remember I'd stopped buying posh coffees, like taking the kids for hot chocolate wasn't an option, no holidays, and I said to Mark, we didn't sign up to do a long-term small business, so we've either got to raise money or stop. And so we went out and had a plan A, which was an AIM listing and AIM listing for raising money and go and acquire a small Swiss company to expand into Europe. And that didn't work because they'd never paid any tax, and we only found that out on the first night of due diligence. So the second plan was we phoned up our nearest competitor in France, and we put the 2 companies together and went and raised some VC money, and that happened in 2006.
So Photobox has raised $300 million to date.
Actually, I've never heard that number. Probably is true, but I have no idea.
But for some of your personal fundraising, what were some of those challenges?
Of raising money?
Yeah, getting the cash in the bank and speaking to people.
Well, the first bit's easy. The first bit was easy. Then kind of the next 2 times we tried to raise it, it was much more of a problem. But I think the later stages of the company, getting into like being a pan-European leader, first of all, it's really, really time-consuming to raise money, and all the time you're spending raising money or considering an IPO or private equity deal, you're not running the business. So I think we were in that mode for too long, and it's distracting. And the second thing that we did, in retrospect, wasn't optimal, was we raised money so many times, each time kind of going up in value, it made it really difficult to sell the company. Because it came to the point where, okay, we're now valued at 100 million or 150 or 200 or 300. All the buyers start dropping away, right? You get to the point where only Amazon or Google will buy you, or somebody, large in your space, and those buyers drop away. So I think we made a mistake by potentially raising too often and making it more difficult to achieve an exit.
And obviously that whole photo world has changed so much in the last 18 years.
Yeah.
How have you learned, when you were back at the company, how do you learn to adapt to those technology changes?
So you're right, the whole photo space, I mean, when I started, it was Fuji, Agfa, Kodak, right? And now there is no global brand leader for photos at all. I still think that if you put us and Shutterfly together, it would make a really cool global brand. I think the only thing I could say is, being at the company for 17 years, we were in a constant state of change, and we were like embracing change. And when I hired people, I would talk to them in the interview about, what are you going to do in a year's time when the job I'm talking to you about now doesn't exist, and I'm asking you to do 5 times as many things or in a completely different space. And if there was evidence that those were really adaptive people that could cope with that kind of change, that was great. And if they just wanted to do one job, they weren't going to cope. So we were constantly evolving in the company.
And you say constantly evolving. You bought moonpay.com back in 2011?
We did.
For 120 million pounds?
We did.
How did that come about?
So in 2010, we had a very credible offer to buy the company, our company, and from an overseas company, and it all looked like it was going through. It got to the point where they were sorting out our personal contracts and everything, and I'm like, well, hey, 10 years, quite a long time, but it's a good exit. And it didn't happen. They got distracted by something on the other side. And we came out of that saying, why did it fail? And we realized that the only way to sell your company is to have an auction. You have to have more than one buyer to successfully sell your company. And we were like, why didn't we have more options? Why didn't we have other buyers? Why didn't we have the option of an IPO or something? And we came to the conclusion that there were lots of factors. I won't go through them all, but basically we were too small. Even then we were turning over, I don't know, tens of millions, 70 million maybe, but we were too small to do an IPO, too small to attract really big buyers. We were really risky. We had this huge seasonal peak. Like we had this one day in December where we'd do 10 times the normal order volume of an average day. So if you got Christmas wrong, the whole business, made a loss for the year. So, and there were things like this, and we were like, okay, how are we going to add more revenue, more profit, deseasonalize, have a slightly different product range that appeals to a different audience? And the answer was Moonpig. And yes, we paid a huge amount of money for it. And there was a reason why that number was inflated and actually could have come down if we'd waited a few months, but I never regretted it. It was a transformational deal for us, and it made us into a much more well-rounded pan-European company.
And what do you think are some of the lessons you've learned around being a founder for 17 years at Photobox?
Well, I don't know, so many. I mean, I wasn't a leader when I started. I'd never managed anybody else, so I had to learn how to be a manager and how to make really tough decisions, how to delegate, which was nearly impossible for me. And I still look back, and the reason I got so stressed was I tried to do almost everything myself. I had a complete burnout in 2008 when my 9-month website rebuild project took 2 years. So lots of lessons, and I think personally kind of de-stressing, looking at the big picture, looking after yourself, that was my big personal thing. Being surrounded by really smart people. And then also, there were so many crises, like massive, huge problem crises, code reds, and times when we thought the business would fail. Even in the later years, that overcoming those was a huge learning lesson, but everyone was unique. It's not like I could prevent them happening, but you kind of get to the mindset where you can cope with them better when they do happen.
And what do you think some of those challenges were in those 17 years? Is there one or two that really stick out and remain that you never forget?
So I remember, so I talked about how important Christmas is. I remember 5th of December, actually whether it was 2013 or 2014, but we had a huge factory in Paris and we had one in Park Royal in London. And I was at a school event and I got a buzz on my phone that the factory had gone offline in London. And this happened, so you think, well, it'll come back on in an hour. It's probably a comms link issue. And then 2 hours later, 3 hours later, hadn't come back on. To cut a long story short, the thieves had gone into Park Royal and pretended to be BT people, and they'd spooled up copper out of the streets and cut through all the cables. They cut through our primary fiber link and our backup fiber link, which went through the same hole. And BT said, well, we'll get you up and running in 4 days. And we said, in 4 days, we'll be dead, right? It's the 5th of December. We've got, 100,000 orders going through the company a day. Everything is bespoke, manufactured for a person. So we worked through the night. We tried to order satellite trucks. We ended up with motorbikes and hard disks going over London. We went out in the end and bribed BT guys to come and fix the cable, which worked. And we were back up and running in 36 hours. But that same week, we had a fire in our French factory, and we had our website go offline because a submarine dragged its anchor through a cable in the North Sea. Oh, and we had an asbestos breakout in our Paddington office, and we had to move to a Regis in the same week.
So how was that Christmas for you? Not a good one?
Well, about a month earlier, I'd done this risk assessment for our auditors, all the things that could go wrong, and 50% of them went wrong that week.
Well, anyway, we sold the company a couple of years ago for several hundred millions of pounds.
Yep.
What was that whole process?
Very long process that started in 2010, so it wasn't quick, and I think I can now look back and understand why it took so long. It was a private equity. We sold to a private equity company. It's not actually kind of like selling your business completely. I'm still an investor and I'm still very connected to it. It's about finding new investors. And our VCs had been in for 10 years at that stage, so they wanted out. So we brought in new investors and some debt and topped up the company so it could go out and do more acquisitions. And they brought in a new fresh blood. 40% of the management team changed. And I stayed on for another year to kind of keep a bit of corporate history going. But it was strangely numbing. It wasn't. I remember going home the night when they told me it had completed, and I think because for 6 years previous to that it never happened, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. But I just remember walking over Millennium Bridge thinking, that was funny, you know. And it wasn't a big life-changing event. It didn't feel like it. Yeah, just another day and go back to work the next day.
So, what did you sell for?
It's an undisclosed number.
Well, it's been
I don't actually know what it was because there's always lots of adjustments that go on when these things, and we had
a rough
this really.
idea.
It was more than 300 million, but I can't remember where in the range it was after that.
And when it completed, did you just go home that evening, have a cup of tea?
Yeah, remember, I'm not 100% owner of the company. I was down to tiny percentages at that stage. And people say to me, oh, you know, what did you spend the money on? And I'm like, well, I don't really... and they say, what car do you drive? And I say, well, I have an 11-year-old Renault Scenic. And they're like, okay. So, no, but it was nice. It was a nice event to happen, and but more than that, it was a great learning experience. And some of the cool things are I get to talk to lots of startups now and some social impact companies, and a lot of the times I don't know the answer to their problem, but sometimes I do, and it's really nice to go in and say, have you tried doing this? Or I can connect you with somebody that does this. And that's a nice thing to do.
And so having run Photobox for almost 18 years, what are you up to in today's world?
So I had 6 months off, and then got a bit bored and started doing some consulting for startups. And that was good fun, but I realized I didn't want to work with any of the 6 startups that I was advising. They were just a little bit too early stage. And I think you figure out when you're thrown into a new environment what you're good at, what you're not. And I need a team around me to be effective. So if I go into a company that's only got 4 people, I'm not going to be good operationally. But I found a company that came to me in doing supply chain tech, 35 technologists, kind of like driving with the brakes on. Really cool product, but not growing as fast as they should be. And so I thought, well, that's an interesting problem to solve for the next 2-3 years. So that's where I am, a company called Photobox. Building supply chain technology.
If I come back to Aaron, what's been quite interesting, you both had co-founders in your company. What difference does it make having a co-founder along the journey?
I'm not doing it again. I'm kidding. Well, because you share the stress, right? I mean, you know, someone to bounce stuff off. But I'm old enough and wise enough now not to bother with that.
I wouldn't have done it without a co-founder. I'd never run a company before, never managed people before. I was good at tech and good at kind of business development, but I was terrible at process stuff, hiring, contracts, bookkeeping. And I think Mark and I were very complementary. And he always describes himself as the Andrew Ridgeley of Photobox, and you're all too young to remember who Andrew Ridgeley was, but he was the one who never spoke in Wham. And so Mark thinks he was like the silent partner, but actually he just made it all glue together, and I couldn't have done it without him.
And within those 18 years, the biggest question, what's been the biggest screw-up you've had for you personally and with the business?
I think it was just naivety, you move on from one challenge to the next and you think, well, I can solve this. And there was one point in 2006 where we put together the French and the UK company. We had a couple of really big challenges to sort out operationally, and we did those. And then we said, okay, what's next? And I said, well, I've got, we're running in 10 countries now, and I've got 6 terrible websites. Let's build one super duper website that does everything, and I'll have it ready for you in 9 months. And it took 2 years, and even then it wasn't good enough. Eventually it was good enough, but it's just the naivety of that. I just thought, and this is often the case, I think, with founders, you think, well, if I can brazen my way through and get there through sheer passion and energy and commitment, then all my team will do the same. And actually most of your team, you can get them to buy into the vision a certain amount, but at the end of the day, they want to get paid and go home and spend time with their family. And so giving them unrealistic goals was not going to work. And it was that learning exercise that was a big thing for me.
And how about you?
Yeah, I would probably echo that a little bit, but I think, don't take it too seriously. It's business, it's not life or death. Roll with it, adjust quickly. It's much easier to adjust today than it was 10 years ago. And I think, for me, it's try and get all your employees and, to be as passionate as you, if you can be, it's difficult. Give them a slice of the pie, elevate them. So if they're in a role, try and elevate them to a better role and encourage them. And also, I think, for me, just get a little bit of experience around you. Just a little word of advice around you, even if you don't listen to it. Grey hair, as they used to call it in my day, and I'm grey-haired. So, just get a little bit of grey hair because they've seen it all, done it all, especially entrepreneurs that you respect and admire. Don't pack it out with people who are head of governance at some corporation, right? Because that's a waste of time. They won't give you anything. They'll just stop you from doing things, all right?
So you've done,
if there's any heads of governance,
you've done a lot. You're working on a new project, but what does a typical day look like for you?
I'm up at 6, not because, it's only because I have 2 children. I wouldn't get up at 6 and a dog that comes bounding in and sort of, why do we get a dog? Anyway, and I clean up the crap, right? I mean, say to your wife, come on, you'll do that. Anyway, and then I get in a car and whips me down to the office. They roll me out now, I mean, literally roll me out. And, I shake the glad hand of the head of this CEO and that one. But actually, I'm primarily on this startup. But I've invested in about 70 companies. I'm on the board of about 20. But I'm pretty active. I don't muck around. Don't do 3-hour board meetings and stuff like that. I believe in people first, ideas second, and that's done me well. I've done quite well out of my 70 investments, but I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it mainly because I like the people, and if the people are passionate, although we were talking about passion and energy versus skill and gut, I suppose, plays a lot with me. And so, that's what I'm busy doing. But the startup's going to be mega.
We'll have you back.
September, yeah.
Like it. Graham, how about you? Typical day?
I get up at 6. I'm a morning person and go swimming or running, and then I'm at work by about 8:30. I like to see my family in the morning before I go. And we work over in Marylebone, so it's kind of nice. I live in West London, so it's a nice, easy way. But it's fairly intensive. I'm dealing with remote tech teams, so I spend a lot of time on Hangout or Zoom every day. I was used to having a technology team in Paris for 9 years, so I used to be on Eurostar every week for 9 years. And I got kind of used to the rhythm of that, but I have now a team in Poland, so it's a bit more difficult to get there. So I go there about once a month. But spend a lot of time talking to them. And a couple of times a week, there's some crisis that flares up, and it's getting into your code red mode and dealing with that. And the rest of the time, just kind of nudging the concrete blocks forward of the big projects and trying to get them going. But I said to you earlier, Ollie, I came to this startup or this business with a fair amount of baggage from the past. My links with Photobox, like Aaron, I've done some angel investing and some social impact stuff. And I realized it was going to be really difficult to juggle the two. So when I started with this company, I said, do you know what? I can only give you 4 days a week. I'll be your CTO 7 days a week, but I'm only going to be 4 days a week in the office. And I keep that extra day for dealing with the extra things. And that's quite a nice shift. And talking to other people and hearing their challenges at earlier stages, it's really interesting for me.
So you've gone from being a founder to now working in a company.
Yep.
How's it being transforming to being no longer the boss?
Well, it's different. It's inheriting somebody else's vision, which you might not agree with, my CEO now is a very driven guy, but I don't agree with him on everything, and I can see how driving with the brakes on has happened. But it's interesting. He's a very passionate guy, so I'll argue, well, we shouldn't be doing it this way, and he'll argue we should. But I still think that I'm coming with a kind of box of tricks of things I've done in the past, and even if I can't fix everything, which is unrealistic. I can get the company into a better state each quarter than it was at the start of the quarter. And that's the point, I guess, to get through 2 or 3 years where you've improved it enough that you've unlocked the growth potential or the attractiveness of that business. And it's an interesting antidote to imposter syndrome, right? Because you think, well, maybe I've been really lucky. Maybe I've had a process of natural selection where I got to the end, but can I do it a second time? And now I'm thinking maybe it's not so easy to kind of have the home run, but to make a big difference to a company, that will be good enough.
You're both angel investors, so what are you looking for in entrepreneurs when you go and back them? And where do you start off?
I can't describe it. I mean, it's a gut feeling. I mean, I can't. You look them in the eye, and I've had good success. You said that you.
I've had less.
So I think it's looking for that element of. I don't know. It's so difficult to describe. It's just what you sense. You know what I mean? It's like a connection you have, and if you follow that connection, hopefully it delivers. Especially because what you don't want to be doing is investing in people that then, just completely disappear with the money or go on a different tangent like we did. You know what I mean? So it's really difficult to describe. I wish I could, but it just is a thing.
So tell about some of the companies you invested in. One or two.
Yeah,
Lexi Health is pretty cool.
So Lexi Health, I mean, it's not far from my space. Lexi is we raised 1.5 million at a 20 million valuation, which was extraordinary for a startup. But we tapped up the entire medical community, which is an incredibly wealthy community, don't really invest a lot. The other great reason of being in London is you've got SEIS and EIS, which is a Michael Heseltine thing. Not that I'm getting political, I'm not either way, but that was a great move on him. And that gives you a great discount worldwide. That is one of the best things on earth. Everybody, one of my German investors go, "You've got this," and we don't have it. Where was I? Oh yeah.
Talking about
Which one?
Lexi Health.
Lexi, the medical concierge. So you can ring up if you know the London health market. You can ring up and literally ask them who's the best at this, who will be the best fit for me, etc. And it's particularly for incoming private health clients. So it plays well to us. And I've also invested in Headbox, which is like the Airbnb for spaces. I've invested a whole lot. I've invested in a moon project, God knows why. I don't know nothing about the moon, but behind Elon, and I've got a couple of other things going.
Love it. Graham, how about you?
So I'm a terrible angel investor, I realized. I've invested in about 30 companies, and I started out by just meeting the founders, and if they were passionate and really committed to making their business work, and they could express to me in a few sentences what it was about, I felt that was good enough, because I thought, well, that's how I was at the beginning, and I got there. And what I realized is that that's not good enough. Lots of them have failed for, I don't know, stupid reasons. I guess there were plenty of stupid reasons that could have brought Photobox down, but didn't. And I think now, if I was going to do angel investing seriously, because I've kind of paused now, I think it was a bit of the giving back, like you mentioned, Aaron. I wanted to do it because I'd benefited from it, so I wanted to do it for others. But if I was to go back into it, I would pick probably slightly later stage companies. I would spend a lot more time on the due diligence of, okay, how are you going to achieve this growth? Some of them have failed because they were trying to start tech platforms and they had no technologists on the team, or medical staff and no medical person on the team. And so basic operational stuff as well. But it's been a learning exercise, and it's not, it's not the end of the world. In fact, I've just had my second ever exit yesterday. A company across the road called Sift, who are a massive marketplace of hospitality workers through an app, just sold to Indeed. It's probably the smallest investment I've ever made. And so if I could have, got that kind of return on one of the larger ones, I'd be great. My portfolio would look less red, but it's looking very red at the moment.
And just before we ask the audience, I'm sure you've got lots of advice for entrepreneurs, but what's that one piece of advice you could give?
I think I think for me, it's just about getting out there and talking to people and making connections. I was 2 years kind of head down, too busy to get out to the office, too busy to talk to people. And often the thing that you're struggling with, if you just explain your problem to somebody else, a solution starts to emerge. And so I think it's getting out there, making connections, seeing who can help you, just asking for advice. I think that's it. Great.
I don't really, I mean, you're all bright, intelligent young people. You know, for me, just keep on going. I mean, okay, if the door's slamming in your face and you're on the abyss and you can't see a way out, give up, try something else, but don't ever give up. You know, keep that energy going as much as you can.
Keep pumping. Well, Aaron and Graham, thank you so much for your time. Please, can you thank us? So there is a mic coming around. So this room is very well connected with people. So I suggest if you've got a question, also think about the one entrepreneurial company you're trying to connect with, as I'm sure there's someone in this room who can connect you. So is there anyone who's got a question? At the back?
Yeah, it's working. So first of all, great job there, Ollie. Well done.
Hey, Raj.
Hey, how's it going? Great presentation, guys. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and your previous experience. A question for Graham. As a CTO and a founder, how do you find yourself dealing with in a sales situation? You see yourself better placed than a CEO? Or do you find that as a CTO, your role is more technical, and so you try and sort of avoid situations where you're selling as well? I know Photobox wasn't really a B2B platform, it's more B2C, I would imagine.
Yeah. So I think I was always in the room when there were investors or potential acquirers, and my part of the story was a big part of it. I learned so much from my CEO about the deck, the importance of the deck and how you position yourself. You've got to tell a story about where you've come from, where you're going, why you're going to dominate, how you're going to grow, and how the potential acquirer is going to generate value in the future, right? And I learned so much about that storytelling from him. But the technology piece is also a lot about how you're going to get there, you know, and how, whether it's improving something that's not great at the moment, or whether it's you know, like showing that the technology is really getting to an advanced level. It's a great part of the story, and also when you take investment or you sell, there has to be something that's broken about your company, or there would be no opportunity for the investor, right? So be open about where those weaknesses are and how you're going to use tech, in our case, to fix them. And also I was involved in kind of the biz dev and selling to ISPs and things like that. So I do like the sales piece as well.
I think there's one question just here. Yeah, sorry, it's okay.
Thank you. How do you see the importance of having a board, and at what stage have you started putting together a board? Is it really an early stage because you wanted it for funding, or is the board changed over time?
Me?
Well,
Yeah. The startup I'm working on, I've put an advisory board together already, and we're 3 months in. And it's probably because I know them very well. It's not because they've invested. Some of them have, some of them haven't. But as soon as possible, I would. I think you find out you're so busy building a business, but that's one of the most important aspects, is getting people around you, as I say, that help you. Not saying no to you, but are questioning some of the decisions in a non-frustrating way. Especially if you're like a dictator of an entrepreneur. You want to get things done, get on with it. And what do they know? You know what I mean? So it's got to be an advantage to bring them in as much as possible. But don't get professional Neds. Don't get people who've sat on big corporate boards unless you're a big corporate player, because unless you're appealing to them and you want to get their business. Just go for people that are quite similar to you in terms of just 20 years ahead in terms of experience.
Yeah, I honestly didn't know what a board was for when I started Photobox. There was a bunch of guys that came around, sat there once a month or every couple of months, and I just thought it was a boring 2 hours when I could have been more productive. I now completely know what it's for. It's governance, it's protecting the interests of the investors, and it's asking the difficult questions. The board is not there to operationally fix your problems. It's not there to magic everything away. It's there to challenge you and ask you to figure out how you're going to solve that problem. And the best board meetings I go to these days, because I'm on 2 boards now, are the really short ones where we get into the savage questions within about 10 minutes. And those are the ones that have the most clarity. You come out thinking, okay, if I don't close that deal, we're screwed. And if we don't do this, then we're going to be insolvent. And you know, it's those kind of clear questions that you really need from your board.
But also to help you with the problems you face, right? You know, there are, you know, you can get beaten up on a board, but you want them to help you. Otherwise, I mean, anybody can sit there and criticize, right?
Change the board as you...
Yeah, you get rid of the ones that get on your nerves.
I think we've got one there.
So a question from me with regard to customer acquisition. With regards to churn, retention, and reacquiring customers, how do you deal with that without having to discount your service or product constantly?
Well, we're word of mouth primarily. In the digital age, we're obviously digitalizing that as word of mouth as much as possible. But we're a dinner party conversation in terms of our membership. It's a £20,000 product, right? We churn at we retain 90% of our clients on an annual basis. And that's because we deliver exceptional services. And remember, you can call us for anything, anytime, anywhere. So that's a pretty uphill task to perform. So you're right. So it's you know, we're very specific though, and dealing with high nets and ultra high net worth individuals. And we obviously gain a lot of clients through corporate partnerships with private banks and private jet companies and private institutions like that. But churn is a big factor in our business. So if you can retain 90, you know you've got a decade's worth of growth.
So we were B2C, and churn is an issue. And Photobox got to the point where it became a very heavy discounting brand, which I never agreed with. And it was one of my, I think on my last day, I said, please, you know, stop doing the deep discounts and make shipping free. But they haven't. But there is a rationale for it, which is if you're making like a really complex photo book, spending hours doing it, something needs to make you sit down on a Sunday afternoon and do that. And actually the most effective trigger is 70% off today only. Or something. So the deep discounting is the trigger to make people sit down and do the work. They haven't found anything better than that. And it kind of works. The cohort model is very, very sensible at Photobox. It does work. I've now moved to a B2B SaaS business where it's recurring revenue. It's an absolute dream.
Sorry, one here, yeah, Franz.
I have a question for Aaron and maybe Graham as well, but it's based on something you said, which is basically that now that you're older and wiser, you don't need a co-founder anymore. So as a 20-something entrepreneur, I've never been old, which means that I don't exactly know if that's true or not. How do you think the journey differs the journey of starting a startup differs from now as compared to like when you were younger as well?
I mean,
like
I've learned
what is different, what is the same?
I mean, I'm going to make you all slightly nervous. I'm Slack, and what else is this product that I have to log into every day and check what these guys are developing? I mean, literally in our day, it was a completely different story. You know, the internet had just been invented. We just got mobile phones, remember, in the late 90s. So, you know, it's a completely different kettle of fish. And I think as an individual, my co-founder in my startup, so to speak, he will call himself that, which is absolutely fine. He's 26, you know, he does stuff. I have no idea what he's doing on a daily basis, but he runs our entire dev team. And I can do that. I certainly, and I know that, but he's excellent and he's brilliant and he's exited the business already and he's really, you know, he's really good quality. So I'm being a bit facetious, so I said, don't need a co-founder. Everybody needs good people around them at all times. Yeah, but you go through, it's like a marriage. I mean, I was 18, I'm still 18 years into this marriage. We used to, I mean, this is how, we used to sit in an office, not much bigger than here, and smoke like 50 a day, et cetera, it's like, and get through it. So we've grown up, men and boys, through it all. And that's something you sort of, hopefully, take with you all the way through to your next experiences. But I've been offered to invest in the new one. They don't want to do it, so I'm like, go fuck yourself. Anyway, I made a bridge. So. Well.
No, we'll move on.
Yeah, cool.
Sorry, where are we? Yeah.
So this question's for the both of you. I want to delve into a little bit of what your childhood was like. So if your best friend was here right now, how would they describe you as the student that you were? And final question is, would they have guessed that you would have become the man that you are right now?
You first, dear.
Good question.
I had a really nice childhood growing up in the suburb of London. We lived in a fairly small house, but my parents, my dad was an estate agent and had a good job, so we went on nice holidays. And so, yeah, I was an only child, but I didn't realize that was an issue at the time. I have 3 kids now, so I kind of figure what I missed out on. But I think at school they probably described me as a bit odd, socially awkward, a bit geeky, certainly at secondary school. Would they be? Yeah, they'd be very surprised.
You did the research. What would he say? Yeah.
I think you're a partier.
A partier?
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe. I have a house in Ibiza. Maybe.
I think you're a very social person. You understood how to control a crowd.
Maybe. Is that what he would say? Well, he's a deaf, dumb, blind mute, and he's actually a very successful VR producer for feature films and stuff. So he just takes the piss out of me all the time. He says, "You don't work for a living. Get out of my face," So, but he's a good guy, and we're up a long time together, and it's really important, obviously, to carry all of those types of relationships through, because they ground you at the end of the day. They say, "Yeah, don't get cocky and all that nonsense." And you still get cocky, of course, but and then they leech off you going to Ibiza every summer. So that's probably what I'd say. Calm down, son.
Peter?
So we have 2 quite different businesses. One's more sort of consultancy, I think it's fair to say, versus a software business over here.
Okay.
Do you think in the new business you're starting?
Not a consultant.
Well, it's a service. It's a service.
Worse than calling me old.
It's a human business, human focused business.
Oh, human.
They're providing a service.
Okay. Do I have a pigeonhole?
Versus the software business over here.
Right, okay. I'll go with
the new business you're working on sounds like it's more of a software focused business with dev team. Is that a sort of itch you wanted to scratch, and would you ever venture into the more human-focused business? And do you think it would be safer to stick with what you know? That's the question.
So I'll start then. So actually, Photobox's real value was in being a human emotional business. Nobody bought paper and ink because, for 70 quid, because they like the physical product. They bought it because it's their own family memories and had a lot of emotional value. And the most common thing we would hear is, somebody gave me this and it made me cry. And so we realized that it was that emotion that we needed to tap into and constantly strive for. And actually the technology was a bit crap. I mean, the Photobox website still looks very dated, and apologies to anybody that's still there. The tech, it wasn't leading edge tech, and I think I now look back and regret that I hadn't gone different forks in the road when we were making our architectural decisions, but very much on the emotional side. And now I'm in a business that's kind of pure workflow technology, and it's just about making those transactions work as efficiently as possible.
Well, I'm going to change my business card to consultant now. And I promised myself I wouldn't employ more than 100 people in the new business, which is a headache. And I also wanted to change something quite dramatically. So I'm disrupting a $1.2 trillion industry. and quite substantially as well. And I just thought I wanted to try and get one of the first ethical unicorns out of Britain. And I think I've got it.
We'll see in September. We'll see in September.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, indeed. Last two questions. Let's go ahead.
First of all, thank you for so non-formal conversation. Really great. My name is Alex. I'm moving from 9 years paid job to SaaS startup founding thing, not paid. So, and my question is actually about co-founders. Can you tell the story, love story or not so positive story of you going, starting the venture with co-founder, and maybe some things you can advise on finding the co-founder, or maybe deciding if it was the right decision after you have already started.
Have you got another founder?
Yeah, I have a
So what was your process?
So basically my process was I had a guy I was working with in the previous company, and the guy I was just hanging out. And I just told them,
Barman.
No, in the tech community. And I just told them my idea, and while I was telling the second guy my idea, he told me, can I join? And I told him, basically we've met, so I can invite you to join. That's my story. However, 3 months passed, I'm trying to think it was the right decision or not. It's interesting your experience of this path.
Well, if you're questioning your decision, good, because I think you should always question who you're working with, etc. In a positive way, though. So if you have a self-doubt, listen to your gut instincts. Listen to them. Because people get very excited, and it's like, oh my God, yeah, those other people love it. And then they're like, oh, hang on, it's not Disney. And but I was at college with one of my founders, and he was bright, lawyer, so I thought I need a lawyer. And then my other founder was well connected in London nightclub scene and restaurants, etc., which sort of has a big sign over it saying, "Don't touch it with a parchment." And we clicked. We all clicked. But you have your off days and your on days, so maybe you're on an off day. But as I say, I can't tell you how to do it, but you just trust it. Just trust it. I say this all the time to people. The door opened. He was in that place at that time. That was the door opening. But is that the right decision for you? I'll give you a secret. I have a, what would I call her? I would almost call her a spiritualist who works for me full time and tells me about people, so that I follow my gut instinct, and then she basically tells me what's right or wrong about them and reads them for me. And I've never really told anybody that, but you're the type of person I'll tell, because I actually think that's what you've got. Yeah? Because you said the door opened and you had a moment with that man or woman. So follow it. It's important.
Thank you.
Graham?
I'll just add briefly, you're going to spend a lot of time with co-founders, so make sure you can stand each other in a room for a long time, but pick somebody that challenges you as well. You don't want to be an echo chamber where you both think this exactly the same thing. And the other thing is, I gave away quite a lot of equity at the beginning, and I did wonder after 3 months when my co-founder said, oh, I'm not sure this is the right thing for me. I was like, oh my God, what have I done? But it all worked out okay. He stayed with us for 12 years. So I think some people now give away very small amounts of equity or give the co-founder status later on when they're sure that the relationship is working. But it depends how careful you want to be. But yeah, just make sure you get on.
Thank you.
Cool. Final question.
I have a question for Aaron.
Hello.
Hi.
What's your name?
My name's Mia.
Hello, Mia.
Hi. When you first started expanding Quintessentially internationally, what would be your main tips for a business going through that?
We franchised.
Okay.
We're a service business though. So if you're a product business, probably slightly different.
Service business.
But we franchised globally quite quickly. So in 2002, our first ever franchise was Turkey. And then, I don't know why, he probably turned up at our door and said, let me in. And we were like, yes, you've got money. And then we did 50 within 3-4 years.
All
quite
franchises.
Quick. All franchises.
And do you think that's the best way?
Well, it depends on your business, and I'll have a chat with you if you want. But for me, the key is we obviously were looking after very wealthy people around the world. So getting the connectivity to people that potentially would like to do this was quite easy. It depends on your service, right? But I recommend quite a lot of the time to businesses that I invest in that grow your own company in core markets like we did. USA, UK, Dubai, Hong Kong, South Africa, because my wife's South African, and she needs something to do. And then the rest of them sort of do a hub and spoke model and license or franchise out. And we cull the bottom 3 or 4 every year, and the top, it encourages everybody else to keep on going. So yeah, depends on the business, but yeah.
Great.
But all the investments I do, I sort of say to them, think about that model, because you can get, if you've got a land grab going on, you need it to get on with it, and that's the quickest way of doing it. Yeah, and it's much easier on capital and on human time.
And how did you choose your franchisees?
Yeah, so we have a large network of very wealthy individuals, and what tends to happen is that they are well connected. So the guy who runs Istanbul, phenomenally well connected in Istanbul. You do a little bit of background on him. You've got more resources than I ever had to do background on them. And then you meet them and you have a beer or a glass of Chardonnay or whatever it is.
Thank you.
Great. Well, first of all, thanks so much for coming this evening. Yeah, let's go for it.
Thank you.
Just before we say thank you to the speakers again, we've got 2 more events coming up. Tomorrow evening, you may have seen some of the messages. It's the Yo Sushi founder, Simon Woodroff. So if you'd like to come along, come and see me afterwards. Do you know Simon? Mm-hmm. Great. I'll ask him tomorrow. And the next event here is on July the 2nd. The speakers are Renee Elliott, founder of Plant Organic. There's Philip Eels, founder of Honest Burger. And also Tony Wheeler, the co-founder of The Lonely Planet, which has sold 120 million books to date. So hopefully see you there. But again, Aaron and Graham, thanks so much.
Thank you.